Okay, I will call the December 5th, 2023 regular meeting of the Mill Creek City Council to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's probably my turn.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adrian, roll call, please.
Mayor Holtzclaw,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vignell,
Here.
Councilmember Cavallari,
Here.
Councilmember Stickler,
Here.
Councilmember Allison,
Here.
Councilmember Duque,
Here.
and Councilmember Pack.
Present.
Okay, audience communication. Anyone in chambers tonight like to address the council? Not seeing anyone. Anyone online? Seeing a negative nod of heads. Okay, we have no presentations tonight. Old business? Mr. Horn?
All right, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. All right, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. So this evening, I prepared a resolution to adopt fire safety inspection fees. And so tonight, first I'll start with a bit of, sorry, new clicker. I'll begin with a bit of background and then go over.
One second, Justin, sorry, let me fix the share.
Oh, that was a city clerk. Did you say continue?
No.
1 second.
Trying to get it shared on Zoom.
The clerks are remoting into the computer to fix the slides and the sharing of the Zoom.
That was our superhero.
All right, so back to it. So first a bit of background, and then I'll go over 3 fee schedule options we prepared. And then if one of those options is agreeable to council, we'll need a motion to select that option for the resolution, and then adopting the resolution. So first in background, most of this you've already seen, so I'll be brief. The fire marshal has a number of duties, which include plan review, fire safety inspections, fire code enforcement, and general fire prevention management. These services are provided to the city by South County Fire. And in 2023, the cost of services was $146,000. The city does currently collect some fees to offset this cost. We collect building or fire permit fees for fire permits. And typically the city raises about $15,000 to $20,000 in revenue from these fees. And 2023 so far, we've collected $17,000. But there are other fees available to offset the fire marshal costs. Other nearby jurisdictions charge a fee for fire safety inspections. These inspections are typically done on an annual basis, and the fire marshal or a fire crew will go to the premises to make sure everything's up to fire code, or the alarms are working, and so forth. We estimate that this eats up about half of the fire marshal's time. So full cost recovery for this service would be around $73,000, half of the total we paid as South County Fire. So we prepared a fee schedule, and we based it off that of Snohomish County, as they're the nearest neighbor that charges these fees, and businesses across the street in the Muga and so forth will have a similar fee schedule. It's calculated based on two factors, the square footage and the occupancy classification. And staff is currently working with South County Fire to implement the payment collection using first due. So fire department already has paid for, and we're setting up now. We hope to be ready January 1st. So in the fee schedule that we used Snohomish County's example of, we prepared 3 rate options. We use Snohomish County as a baseline. However, this wasn't a great baseline because the county hasn't updated their fire fees for over 20 years. So our first option is inflation adjusted. We took Snohomish County and multiplied it by 20 years of inflation, which is a 65% increase. Option 2 is a full cost recovery, which would bring in the necessary $73,000 to fully offset the fire marshal service costs. This would be a 120% increase from the Sunoco baseline. And lastly, option 3 is just exactly what Snohomish County charges. We mirror them exactly. On the slide, you can also see there's some estimated revenue numbers. I want to give a caveat. These have pretty large error bars on them. To come up with these numbers, I basically went through the Snohomish County assessor's records and found the square footage for every commercial and apartment building in the city, and then stuck that in a table with all the fees. And it's not exact because when we actually charge these, we won't go to like a Billion Town Center and bill the property owner for the whole space. We bill each tenant individually. To come up with all those independent spaces ahead of time would have taken many man hours that we don't want to spend. So grain of salt, these estimated revenues, they could change. But they're our best guess. The other caveat would be, ideally, to create these fees, we would look at a past year and say, we brought in X amount of revenue, we need X amount this year, let's adjust up or down based on that. We don't have any past years to base this off of, so it's a bit like throwing a dartboard. But of course, we did the best estimates we could. All right, so I've done these in reverse order just because I should have put the baseline as number 1, but I didn't. So it's reverse order. Option 3 is the baseline. You can see the lowest fee is for a small space of 0 to 1,000 square feet, $45, all the way up to 550 for very large spaces over 200,000 square feet. There are very few places over 200,000 square feet in the city. I think the Lowe's is around 140,000 or so. So we won't build that high number very often. And then there is a fee at the bottom. That's a reinspection fee. So if the fire marshal visits your premises and he has corrections to make, or you need to make corrections, he'll come back at a later date. And there's no fee for that inspection. However, if you fail to fix items the fire marshal has flagged, that's when the reinspection fee would apply. So the 3rd time they have to come back. All right, now we have option 2. This is cost recovery, aiming to bring in around $76,000. This is increased from the baseline by 120%. And ranges from 100 to 1210 as the maximum fee. Option 1 is inflation adjusted. So what Snohomish County would have been if they had kept pace with inflation, ranging from 75 to 910. Now, there are a lot of numbers on these tables, so I've got a few examples here. So if you were a small coffee shop, 1,200 square feet, inflation adjusted fee would be 105, cost recovery would be 145, and Sunoco baseline would be 65. And for a large restaurant, we have 305, 405, and 185. For a grocery store, 380, 505, 230, and for apartment complex, 825, 1110, and 500. All right, are there any initial questions?
Were we charging under SERFA or was that it was encompassed under the contract price, but were we charging for the inspections?
Great question. Under Surfer, it was encompassed in the contract price. We're not charging for inspections. And currently, no other cities in South County Fire are charging for inspections, but many are moving that direction. So we were sort of the trailblazers, which is another reason it's hard to pick the right fee level because we're the first ones doing it in this area. And in this area besides Snohomish County. There are other cities in the region that do charge. Everett charges, Lake Stevens charges, Bellevue, Redmond. Those are a few of the ones I looked at. There's others, but none of the other cities in South County Fire.
So since the annexation took effect, have we been charging a fire inspection fee?
We have
No.
not been charging thus
Okay.
far.
Councilmember Cavallari?
Thanks, Mayor. You answered most of my question. Of those other cities that do charge, what methods do they use? Do we know that? Is it full recovery? Is it the other examples that you listed here?
We don't know.
City of Everett, for example.
Everett actually is the only one I do know. When they introduced their fees several years ago, I found an old council meeting where they said they based it off of their actual costs. So they look how much time we're spending. Here's what we're going to bring in. That's what they base their fees off of.
Councilmember Duque?
Where do schools fit into this?
Great question. Schools are, they are an E occupancy type, so they'd be in the middle column.
Okay.
Some cities charge schools, some do not. I know Bellevue does exempt many nonprofit buildings, including schools and federal buildings, but most cities do not.
Thank you.
Councilmember Paddock?
Thank you. How are we contracting for the fire marshal services? So who do we pay and how do we pay them?
Sure. So our contract with South County Fire, we negotiated for the first year $146,000. And then that's in addition to what residents pay on their property tax bill.
So are you recommending or presenting to us three options simply because we're going from zero to something? Or is there another justification as well?
That is the reason. So
Okay.
there was a debate how we should set them. Full cost recovery is quite a bit higher than the county's fees. We weren't sure if we wanted to jump that far in one go. So we thought inflation might be a better option, inflation option. That being said, if we do want full cost recovery, I will say that I would like to next year in the fee, we'd like to bring this fee annually to council to make sure it's staying up to date. Ideally, we'd reassess after the second year or after the first year. So next year, we can look at how much do we bring in, how much do we want to adjust to maintain cost recovery. But we don't want to set it, if we set it too low now, if we have a high jump later, that could be not preferable. But if we set it too high, then we would want to lower it later.
Well, this reminds me a little bit of the discussion we had on stormwater years ago, where we were stuck at $79 for 25 years, and we decided to take it up to what, 150 or so, and then graduate it up a little bit. And so I'm wondering if there's an option where, I don't know what others think. I'd like us to at some point get the full cost recovery. I don't know what I want to do it right away, but maybe we start at one point and phase over 3 years, I don't know, 4 years, we move towards getting to full recovery.
Yeah,
Well-
and in the ordinance you passed that authorized us to pass these fees, we did include we phrased it for fees implemented on an annual or biannual resolution. So we do want to bring it back every year to adjust as need be.
City manager?
As Justin said, full cost recovery of the function of the permitting function that the fire marshal. So that's about 50%. of the position.
I
So
think
full
the,
cost recovery would be double.
I'm sorry, could you explain that?
We're recovering the cost of what it would take for him to, the fire marshal, tend to those functions that relate to the inspections.
Inspection. So in other words, the fire marshal, we're paying for more than just the inspection services. So
Correct.
the full recovery, what I was referring to is full recovery of the inspection services, not the full recovery of
Okay.
our fire marshal costs. Councilmember Cavalieri.
thanks, Mayor. I think in a perfect world, in a perfect situation, full recovery would be ideal. However, that I think the options that you gave us here, the examples, the coffee shop being the top one, the differences are double and almost triple in the prices as opposed to the options. And I think the small businesses would probably feel it the most. So I think I would lean toward option 3 for that reason. Besides that, I think there's some parity with what the county charges and what the most of the public might be used to already in this county. I think probably at the very least, to the mayor's point, that might be a great starting point.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what the mayor's saying. For me, I think we need to end up at the full price at some point, but it is such a huge jump for them, and we need to get people used to needing to pay the fees. And so I would lean towards starting with option 1 with the idea that over time we would build up to full cost. I also feel that the county, like you said, this low number is not a full indication for the long term, because when I was on the health board, one of the things we did was we went through and they did look through enforcement, and we adjusted the fees for the health board. So I feel that they are also in the middle of adjusting their fees and looking at all their fees for everything, just like we are as a city. And I would anticipate that when they get to those fees are going to go up as well. And so if we started at option 1, we would already be closer in alignment with whatever they will ultimately land on, and building towards our full recovery for the services. Thank you.
Councilmember Paddock.
Is there a way we could put a mechanism in place that we wouldn't have to go back each year to increase to get up to that? Because it sounds like there's a corpus of agreement or interest in getting to fully paying what we're going to be charged for doing the fire marshal service. Could we start at one level and then have an automatic ratchet year 2, year 3? So that, you know, our business owners know what's coming?
I look at staff, not me, for answering that.
We actually did discuss that. I know our finance director, Amina, she wanted to have she suggested that we have an automatic adjustment to keep pace with CPI. I didn't select that. I didn't include that as an option on this, only because I don't know how much of an adjustment we're gonna need for the first year, because the error bars are pretty high. So I don't want to have an automatic increase if we don't need to, but we certainly could do that as an option.
I was thinking more of, let's just say for argument's sake, we do have a majority that says, hey, we want to get to, let's say the fully burdened cost by year 3. So year 1, whichever option is selected by the group, year 2 is halfway, and year 3 is all the way. Is it possible to set up that type of cost mechanism? Again, one, so we know, because you know, what we're doing is we're basically telling the rest of the public, you're going to be paying for fire services because we're not fully charging, right, the business owners, which is fair because this is a new fee for the business owners. But we should let everyone know where we're going and how we're getting there so that it's clear, is what I would like to see.
Councilmember Cavalieri.
Thanks, Mayor. And I'm just going to kind of talk out loud here for just a second. And given the economic circumstances that we're facing, not only just today, but the last 2 years and what looks like it's translating to, going forward, this council has just raised property taxes a month ago on pretty much, on all of our citizenry. And now the talk is of maybe just this large jump to another recovery service. I just feel like we're being a bit heavy-handed with these amounts. And I remember, I think it was Ms. Heidel, I'm not sure if she's on, but she remarked how, $40, $50, $60 a year is very significant to her. And so in the economic climate, I would prefer and be my preference that we start maybe on the low end and see how it goes, see what we're out of pocket, and maybe go from there. Full recovery, I guess it would be ideal. What is full recovery? I don't know what that looks like to a coffee shop with 1,200 square feet. Thanks.
It's right there in option 2. So we do know what that looks like.
I don't know if this is a question for Justin or Director Todd. What is our policy on other fees? I know we're working on a fee study, but what is the approach or going to be with, for instance, development permits, or when a property owner comes in with an application for remodel their house? Do we go for full cost recovery of our costs for city review of those permits?
The answer is no, we haven't been doing that. And that's one of the reasons I think we've been talking about the fee study that's ARPA funded. That's what Laurel's nodding at. And that's one of the things that's also in Justin's back pocket, thinking about this annual revisiting of the fees. We are guilty as a city of not revisiting these things. So we're way out of whack. You were telling me the other day, Justin, for getting off topic, but the permit for a building for plumbing fixtures, you remodel your bathroom, it's silly how small it is. It's not enough money to pay for the guy to drive out to do the inspection, is it?
Yeah, it's about $45.
But that fee study is something that's on the work plan that you guys are working on, correct? So I guess that kind of changes my thought processes. I would suggest maybe starting at the low end with the understanding that we're going to bring it in line with having a consistent policy across the board for how we want to recover these fees. I wouldn't want to treat these differently than others. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I can be okay with doing the option 3 if that's what all of you are leaning towards. I think I just want to share a little bit of what I'm thinking and kind of where I'm coming from. What I'm thinking is that the city is paying for these fees for the businesses. And so by us not recouping the money back from the store owners, we're thus asking all the residents in the city and those who just got that tax increase who can't afford it, we're asking them to subsidize the businesses. And I don't think that's fair. So I just kind of wanted you to know where I'm thinking and where I'm coming from when I'm looking at it.
Councilmember Allison?
Yes, I agree with everything that Mayor Pro Tem just said. And I like the idea of starting with option 3 because this is going to be something they haven't had to incur before. And if the messaging is we're studying it, we'll have a better idea what the actual fee should be after we run through and really pay attention for a year. And then even maybe stepping up one more time and then fully getting it paid for from the inspections, like over a course of 3 years. I would rather do that so that we aren't shocking these business owners, especially the small ones. The larger probably wouldn't notice it so much, but I think a phased approach and starting with the smallest number would be the best approach.
Before we get too far into discussion, are there any other questions of staff? And maybe then we can have a motion in a second and get into discussion. No questions? You have a question, Councilmember Steckler?
I have a question of staff, and then I have an opinion that I wanted to express since I've been listening to everybody else.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry if I missed this, but my question of staff is, what is staff's opinion and recommendation for council where we should be?
You want to go, Martin?
I think when I had a discussion with Director Todd last week, our thought was that not to go for full, but rather option 1 is to at least recover as much as we could from that cost, and that we're probably in the ballpark of where that fee should be. That was our discussion, and that's where kind of we were laying. And Director Todd, if I missed something, please let me know.
Well, that's about it. And I think the trick is people right now are paying zero. So a coffee shop in Mill Creek is paying zero, and the guy right across the street is paying $65. So for the guy in Mill Creek, just paying the same $65 would be fair. But we also looked at the Snohomish County fees and said they haven't adjusted them for 20 years. This is crazy. So do we copy their mistake, or do we do where they should be? Because will they turn around and do a fee study next year and bring it up to the, where the option one is? So we went around and around in circles. We were looking for other cities for examples, and as Justin pointed out, our other neighbors are not doing this. And so we are in the pioneer trailblazing mode of arrows on our back. So a phase system would work. I would say that the way that when you took action on the ordinance is set up to easily have an annual resolution for a chart. It's not set up to do 3 years worth. So I think we probably have to adjust the ordinance. I'm not sure. Justin's close to those words. It could be done, but our objective is to get this done and have it in place for January 1, so that we can say to everybody, starting January 1, 2024, there's a communication letter, a nicely written letter says, hey, here's why you've got a fire inspection fee. Fire inspections are great. They're for safety, yada, yada, yada. Here's your fee. And we like to have a clean start. So that's why we're trying to rush to get this done. It has been difficult on the other end, but we're very fortunate that South County Fire bought this First Due tool, which gives us a way to collect fees, because we as a city don't really do billing things like this. But this is going to be slick, where the money's going to come directly to our bank account. They could take a credit card or issue an invoice at the moment when fire marshal's making that inspection. So it's a really slick system, but that's only just hot off the press. Again, we're the pioneer for what South County Fire is going to be doing longer term.
Yeah, that was really helpful for me as listening to everybody. Fire marshal services do need to be paid for by the businesses. And what I'm hearing is that there's a concern about overcharging the businesses for it. And I respect that, but what I'm coming from the guy who didn't want to raise taxes the last time we were at this dais, I do feel that they should be paying for this. And if anything, my only concern with option 2 is that you can't assure me that isn't too much, which would be a little, I wouldn't want to make that. If you can't assure me that's not too much, then I would definitely go with option 1, which I hear is not, you can assure me that is not too much. That's probably not going to be enough. And, but that is a start. And until we can find out exactly where we are with it, I would recommend option 1, not option 3, because it's definitely not enough. But option 1 is not enough, but it's definitely not too much. And until we can know what is the right amount, I would go with option 1 for next year, which would give us another year to get into the actual amounts, and we know a better, clearer number to come back to our businesses, and then tell them that's the number that we will need going forward. But that would be my recommendation.
Councilmember Duque.
No question. I wanted to make a motion.
Okay.
If there's no other questions, so we can then get into discussion. So I'd like to move to select fee schedule option 1 as exhibit A for the resolution adopting fire safety inspection fees. So option 1.
Second that motion.
Discussion?
Can I speak to that?
Yes, you
Second
can.
that motion.
So when I came in from reading this over the weekend and, looking at what I was going to do, I was fully it was a no-brainer to me that we were going to go for option 2. Because we said that we needed to collect these fees. That was it. And I'm not going to ditto to what Mayor Pro Tem Vignal said about, making sure where the costs are efficient. I do agree with what everyone said about, though, that option 2, now that I've heard it and hearing from you about, we're throwing a dart, although your dart throwing skills are probably much more fantastic than if I tried. So I want to take into respect that you did definitely look at the information and the data to get us some numbers, to get us into a place. But that's why I'm going with option 1, not just because it's in the middle, but it seems to make the most sense in what you've explained, what staff have explained, what we know as a history for it. And also as, being smart about not wanting also to push away businesses from not being able to want to be here in Mill Creek with option 2 so quickly, especially if areas surrounding, if that's like one of the deciding factors. I don't know how much that'll take into play for members of the business community, but just thinking about that. And I respect the idea of like being able to come back to it each year. So that's the reason why I did the motion for option 1.
My concern is with having a consistent citywide policy on all our fees. And so my suggestion that I'll throw out there, if someone wants to make this for amendment to the motion, is that we would go with option 1 with 2 changes. We provide for annual CPI adjustments to the fee. And then the second would be that we consider future adjustments to the fees consistent with any citywide policy that's adopted following completion of a fee study. So I'm not making a motion, I'm throwing those ideas out if someone wanted to.
So you're not you're not
Yeah.
submitting that amendment.
No, I'm not making, I'm throwing that out as a suggestion for potential amendments, if anyone wanted to make it.
I like it, but I need someone to make it.
Mhm.
Sorry, I would say I would accept that if someone was going to make the amendment,
Someone could make a motion to
amend
amend the motion, and then we vote on the amendments if there's a second.
the motion.
And then depending on the outcome of that motion, we vote on the original motion.
Okay.
It'd be, again, I was suggesting we consider 2 changes, that it stays with, it'd be option 1, but we'd provide for annual CPI adjustments to the fee. And we'd consider future adjustments to the fee consistent with any policy that's adopted by the council following preparation of a fee study, which is underway.
He said he is underway.
That's what I believe staff told us.
Could option 3 include those same amendments?
It could, but
Theoretically.
option 3 isn't on the table.
Right,
now.
right. I'm
Yes, it
I'm
could.
just throwing that out there.
Yes, it could.
Thank you.
Okay, move to make the motion that.
To amend the motion.
Move to amend the motion that, to provide for an annual CPI adjustment. And that we will consider, fee changes based on any other fee changes after the,
Based on the citywide policy that may be. if
Citywide
once
policy.
Adopted following conclusion of the fee study.
that.
Mayor,
Where is he? City attorney.
thank you. Just a quick point of clarification to the Mayor Pro Tem's motion. It's in the form of a question. One of the items I believe, and Director Todd can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but under our contract with for Fire Marshal Services, we have an annual adjustment to that based upon the costs associated for that service as well. I believe there's an independent variable there that I think is relevant if we're going to make annual adjustments. I believe there are some annual adjustments that are occurring in that contract over time.
When I made that suggestion, I was not aware of the contract provision. So do we have any information on that?
I'm trying to remember, but basically, when we signed up for Fire Marshal Services through South County Fire, part of the annexation agreement, we agreed to a number which was 1/2 of an FTE and 1/2 of a vehicle is how they got to that price. We said that's a good price. And we're set up for basically 3 years of Fire Marshal Services before we could say we don't care to buy those from them, we buy them from somebody else. I don't remember if we really predicted the fee, the amount of it.
That's the
Could be
fee
an
that,
increase.
Grant, you're referring to what we pay Fire District 7.
No, Mayor, this
Oh,
would
I'm
be
sorry, South County Fire. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
South County Fire. I believe there's an annual CPI element in the agreement. I just want to make, what I wanted to do is make sure that that was encompassed within the intent of the amendment so that we would be sweeping up any additional costs, because what we've got here is not only is there a CPI going, but there's also a contractual element that might be affecting the cost of the Fire Marshal Service. So if you're ultimately wanting to recover, stay in the same place, if you will, you need to make sure that you can recover whatever increase is passed along pursuant to the Fire Marshal Services contract with South County Fire.
I will apologize that Chief Eastman asked me, should we use the same fire marshal assumptions for their 2024 budget? And I said, yes, but I didn't look at the details, so I apologize. I know that they passed a balanced budget with a 1% property tax, 1% EMS, 2% fire benefit charge. And so they didn't have a huge increase overall. But I do not know if that contract, we could look into that and bring it back next week if you'd like to. Imagine it's not more than the CPI W or CPI U kind of number, which I think the same number you're talking about.
Could we do a greater than CPI or increase from South County Fire?
Well,
In the
was there a second to the motion to amend the motion?
No.
So let's take it one step at a time. Does anyone want to second that motion?
I was a little confused by it myself.
I'll second it for the discussion.
Okay, the intent of the motion was, the original motion was just to go with option one. So we had heard staff, I think, mention that one option would be to at a minimum adjust it annually for CPI. Leave it at option one, adjusted annually. So that was one component. And the other issue that I was raising is we're undergoing a fee study to look at how we address fees, and we're going to be having a discussion on recovery for permitting fees and whatever other fees that we charge for. And we'll be making a policy decision, I assume, on do we treat those all the same? Do we treat one differently than we do another? And so I was suggesting that we look at future adjustments to maybe go up to option two or a higher fee for fire inspection based on what policy decisions we made once we have that fee study in front of us. So that's what I was trying to capture with that second element.
And Mayor, the last part I was just trying to add to it would be a comment to say, and any other contractual adjustments based upon the city's contract for fire marshal services.
I understand the point, but that would be a subject of another motion.
Okay, all right.
Everyone understand what Grant's saying? There's another adjustment component that is in the contract that may be above and beyond CPI, or it may be the same amount as CPI. We just don't have it in front of us. Any other discussion on the motion to amend the Councilmember Cavallari?
I'll wait for the second vote. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. So if there's no further discussion, the motion before us is to amend the original motion to add those two, I call them caveats, the CPI adjustment and potential future adjustment based on any decisions we make based on the fee study when it's completed.
One question to the staff. When will the fee study be completed? Will it be completed by end of 24?
And it will be possible to amend this resolution, or easily could rescind it, pass a resolution to update the fees once the study is out.
Any other questions or discussion on the motion to amend the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? The motion to amend the motion passes 5-2. So that brings us back to the original motion for option one as amended with the two changes. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Cavallari.
Thanks, Mayor. I think some of the points that have been made the last few moments by staff and by the mayor himself regarding the lack of parity with existing policies. I would support the amendments. We have the ability with those amendments to utilize option 3 and get us exactly where everybody wants to be in a couple of years. So with the rollout of the introduction, I would say that option 3 is a better option. So I would not be supporting option 1.
Any other discussion? Everyone understand what the motion as amended is that's on the table? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstention? That was it. Okay, there's abstentions. The motion as amended passes 5-2. 5-0. Thank you. Is that all we have to cover on fire inspection fees tonight?
If you want to also pass the resolution, that would be at the next step. So it's a motion to select one of the options. Now we need to pass the resolution with that option attached.
I think this is a question for Grant. Are we okay to, do we need to amend the resolution as in the packet, or is it understood that we're adding sections to that?
We've just amended option one, so all we'll need to do is fill in the blank for option one. So we need a motion to adopt the resolution, including to include the fees, as the fee schedule option one. And I believe there's a blank in the resolution for which option, isn't that correct? Yeah.
Do we want to do that, or in light of the changes that were made, do we want to put it in writing and have the actual resolution as we amended it in front of us? What's the pleasure?
We could certainly write up the amended option one and bring it back for next week.
I think everyone would be more comfortable seeing the language of what we just did in front of us.
Okay.
Can you staff do that and bring it back next week?
Yeah, we'll bring it back next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, our new business, planning commission start times, meeting start times.
This is, yeah. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. Proposed ordinance before you is to change planning commission start time from 6 to 7. The reason being that with the upcoming updating 2024 comprehensive plan, we do want to meet a bit earlier so that we have more time for discussion. So the proposal is to have a motion to approve the ordinance for a change of time and a set time frame.
For the planning commission. Okay, any questions from council?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance to amend and set the planning commission regular meeting on the third Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Oh, Councilmember Duque?
I just hope, I know that this impacts the design review board time. And I know that there's been conversations on that email thread with design review about time. So I hope that's taken into consideration, the people involved. But I remember when I first heard about this, I went, oh, that's nice that that it starts earlier. I was always surprised that it started at 7. It seems very late for meetings that sometimes have all your special meetings or all your all those opportunities. So thank you for bringing this.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Carmody.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here before you to talk about the Sweetwater Ranch Stormwater Repair Project, Professional Services Agreement. Some quick background. I've already spoken to you about this before, but I'd like to go through it in a little bit more detail. A 36-inch corrugated metal pipe was installed prior to the Sweetwater Ranch development in a 30-foot easement. This conveys the flow upstream from the upstream in the Mill Creek Drainage Basin. And in the map that you're seeing in front of you, the Mill Creek Drainage Basin is in green. And the project location is where it is indicated there. Multiple sinkholes developed along the main in 2018, and the city performed emergency repairs as needed. This resulted in a new bypass of the broken pipe with a 27-inch Vylon slip-lined main, which was installed to the east of the existing main. The original main was then abandoned in place. On February of this year, city staff investigated a depression in the backyard of 1328 144th Street Southeast. The depression turned out that it was a sinkhole adjacent to one of the recently installed catch basins. Upon investigation of the catch basins, both in 1328 and in the neighboring property, all of the pipe collars were severely damaged in them as well. So the connection between the pipes and the catch basins is breaking. Staff has determined that a new fix is needed to address and repair these items. We have sent out requests for qualifications 3 times. The first closed on July 26th with no response. The second closed September 1st, also with no response. We issued a third one in October. It closed on October 25th. We received 1 responsive full RFQ on that one. OTAC Inc. provided the only response, and the staff has negotiated a full scope and fee for the project. Based on our negotiations, it was determined that phasing the contract is the appropriate choice because part of the project is an alternatives analysis. So part of it will be the beginning investigations of the site, where that'll include survey, geotechnical, engineering, and hydrologic investigations of the site. We will get full geotechnical investigations as well as structural investigations of the neighboring properties to ensure that there isn't any additional damage from anything that is happening. Then they will perform a full hydrologic and hydraulic analysis of the Mill Creek Basin. So they will find out how much water goes through it and how much water this pipe will need to convey. From that, they will develop a set of alternatives, whether it's replace the pipe or move it to a different location, provide a detention system, provide different items to find the best and most cost-effective way to fix the problem. Then they'll create a 30% design of that selected alternative where we will pause. I will bring it back before council. We will figure out how much funding we will need for this, and we will authorize the second half, the final design plans to go out to bid and construction. The first phase fee through 30% is $184,963. The projected completion of that is May 2023, though I'm going to press to have it done as quickly as possible.
May 24.
24, sorry. I
They're
missed
not,
that
they're
typo.
not
That's my
that
bad.
good.
The second phase scope and fee will be negotiated based on the selected alternative with construction to follow in late summer 2024. Are there any questions?
Dan, why is there only 1 bidder and 3 RFQs?
This project has a lot of risk associated with it. The designs and especially the houses located almost directly adjacent to the main and the depth of the main mean that there is a chance that something could happen. And so you need to have a very strong specialized team to do it. As the bidding was going on, I actually spoke with 4 total bidders during the October bid phase. 3 of them dropped out because they could not take the liability.
Wow. Wow, thanks.
Councilmember Duque?
That was a fantastic question, Councilmember Cavallari, because that was that's what I had first. But my second follow-up, and now I forgot it because that one really, that was the main one. I'm trying to see if I can remember before you give me away. Nope, I'm just gonna walk away and then I'll remember in a second. Sorry, everyone.
Okay. Does that main convey, was it built with Sweetwater Ranch?
It was built before Sweetwater Ranch. It was built with the development to the north. I don't remember which one that one is.
Douglas Fir?
Yeah.
The Sweetwater Ranch flow comes off of that street and is right on top of that, but it's only like 5 or 6 feet deep. This is like 15 feet deep.
15 feet deep, yes.
So this was there in place before they built Sweetwater Ranch, and the Sweetwater Ranch pipe is working fine. This is the one that's underneath, and that's the problem, is it's so deep.
Councilmember Duque?
Did who we worked with in the past bid on this, or did we, or whoever did it,
No.
that's what I wanted to check without naming
The
names.
groups who were responsible for the repairs did not bid on it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion, and I think everybody knows how we got here. It just is what it is. I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a professional services agreement with OTAC Inc. not to exceed $184,936 inclusive of all taxes.
Second.
Any discussion?
One question, which is
Yeah.
what's the funding mechanism for the 183?
It is currently in the budget on a line item, I believe it's REIT.
It's in, yeah, it would be in the 401 fund. We have money in 401, which is our surface water fund, where the money came in is out of rates. And so that's it's using up some of our $3 million, $4 million, and that, originally, remember we had a bond money that we put in there, we're paying it back from rates. We have the $3 or $4 million. This means we don't have money for some other future project, but this didn't require new funding necessarily. Ermina and Dan put this into the amended CIP and put it into the budget that you just approved a week or two ago at 350, I think. 300. So we put in 300. And so this is part of that. That's what Dan was talking about. This is the first phase. After we pick a second alternative, hopefully if things go well, about the rest of that 300 will be used. So right now we think that 300 is still a good number. So we have the money allocated for this budget cycle, but yeah, ultimately it's going to affect rates.
Thank you.
The construction itself.
Is unrelated, but are there any other places we're aware of where there's stormwater pipes that deep going through residential neighborhoods?
Oh, I don't know.
I'm not off the top of my head. There may be.
I mean, this is unusual, isn't it?
It is. Usually stormwater pipes will follow the contour of the land or the roadway. And so
Right.
I would anticipate if it was built today, I would have put it out on 527.
Yeah.
But this is the way that it was built originally. So
Well, the way that the city at some point in the past approved it to be built. Or actually, was it our storm? Yeah, it would have been our stormwater approval, right?
Well, if you think about it, so this has water that comes from north of
Yes.
the 136 up by the high school, goes through Dumas Road and Burke Place and all those old neighborhoods, goes underneath Trillium, then goes into Douglas Fir, and then goes underneath Sweetwater Ranch. So the developer, UDC, placed this pipe when they built Douglas
Oh.
Fir, but it may have been, had to be deep enough to deal with stuff upstream. Again, somebody probably should have taken it out to 527, but you think about Trillium kind of dips down, and so I bet they were trying to catch the waters that are having to go really deep out to 527.
So is this I assume the basin includes that whole wetland system north of Jackson.
Yeah, go back to your green picture if you can. Oh, you lost it, but that was
Okay,
that
well, I'm
green
getting-
basin,
I'm
but
getting
yeah, it goes
far
up clear
afield.
north of Jackson,
Yes.
clear up to the. yeah,
it does
okay.
go up all the way to Highway 96.
Okay, I'm getting far afield. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. City manager, study sessions.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So we're second bite at 3 sessions on the opioid settlements. As you know, we recall last week you had an opportunity to listen to Jason Bierman over at Snohomish County. Councilmember Duque wasn't here, so I'll give kind of a brief overview, kind of what we talked about. But everything's in your packet, including, well, and I'll cover what's in there a little bit later. But we had the opportunity to listen to Jason and kind of the programs and the goals that Snohomish County had regarding their opioid abatement strategies going forward with the money that they received. And so now I'm going to present to you some information that help you kind of think about kind of what council and the city would like to do moving forward in terms of either transferring those funds over to the county and their programs, or in-house us, we can develop our own strategies and how we want to pursue opioid abatement. So today we'll cover settlements from a federal and state level, the impact on Mill Creek, some opioid core abatement strategies. In your packet, there's more detail. I just put a summary on the PowerPoint here, but you'll have more information in there moving forward. Some review and discussion, key points, and then next steps. So at the federal level, there are 2 major settlements. Includes 3 distributors, 3 retailers, and 3 manufacturers. The first settlement in 2021 involves one manufacturer, Janssen, who is a subsidiary of J&J, one of the many companies that J&J owns, along with three other distributors, including McKesson, Cardinal Health, and Amerisource Bergen. The second settlement, and that settlement was mostly paid out to all the recipients. The next settlement, which has not been paid out yet, is from 2022, includes two more manufacturers, including Allergan and Teva, and also three retailers, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. And dollar amounts are in there. Each one of these settlements, organizations have a vary in terms of years and how far the payouts occur. The first global settlement in 2021 from a national level is $4 billion. On the state level, the state is receiving $518 million. The second global settlement that where the city will receive a partial part of that is at the state level, $433.6 million. And I'll give you a kind of an estimate of what the city of Mill Creek will probably get in the ballpark in their next slide. But over 2021 and 2022, documentation on the National Opioid Official Settlement website mentions that 85% of the dollars are going to states and subdivisions for the abatement of epidemic. And at the bottom, if you want to get more detail regarding the payout in dollars, you can go to that website, and it's gives you a lot of information. There's not information on the second settlement yet in terms of the payouts, but it should be there, I'm guessing, in the coming months. On the Mill Creek side, the participation agreement was signed on 4/4, thanks to you that you approved that. So we executed that. So we're part of the program. It's a total of 18 distributions over the years. We have received the first 3, so we have a remaining 15 years to receive payments. You can see those payouts and what years and the amounts we're going to get throughout those periods. So as I mentioned, the first, 15 years left. The second payout is roughly about 200,000. I guess 150. Our finance director said a little over 200. So I'm guessing ballpark to 200K. So we're looking still probably roughly double what you see on there is what we're going to get per year. In your packet, you have the core abatement strategies that were set per the settlement agreement. This is just the title, the headings on those pages, and it gives you an idea of kind of what the funding could go towards. And I was a little surprised. There's a broad array of things that we could do with it, not just purchasing Narcan. Prevention services, working with different agencies. So it's very important for you to kind of understand that and then go through that documentation for next week when we do make a decision on what you want to do with the funds. You'll find that there are a lot of options. So Exhibit E, Schedules A and B are at the bottom of that page and it's in your packet. So again, on 11/28, you had the opportunity to listen to Jason Bierman, who is the Senior Policy Advisor in Snohomish County's Executive Office. And he provided us with some idea of kind of what their strategy is. Attached in your packet also is, I included part of his presentation, not everything, but I thought was pertinent was the phases, kind of what they were going to do with the funds. One of the questions I had is what really would be the direct benefit to Mill Creek in terms of products or services. Mill Creek strategies. What I would say is, as I mentioned, is review that settlement agreement, that portion of it that has those abatement strategies, and it'll give you a better idea of kind of how to come back and make a decision next week. The other option is to reallocate to Snohomish County, and here's some pros and cons on reallocating, and if we do keep those funds in-house. we could develop a partnership with Snohomish County. It will minimize administration costs on our end because there's probably not much we need to do from an administrative standpoint other than transfer funds. I believe there might be some additional reporting on where those funds go to because they are a sub-recipient of this grant money. Probably an ILA will be something we have to create too with the county. Some transfer docs. My guess would be there's be some type of reporting back on kind of what they're spending the funds on as well. So, and probably monitoring. Monitoring kind of occurs with every sub-recipient, whatever grant you use or whatever grant where you forward money on. So, and there might be some other pros and cons to reallocating funds, but that's just kind of what I came up with. And then on the Mill Creek side, if we develop our own strategies, one of the pros is that there's probably more of a direct impact on how these funds are going to impact our communities. After looking at the documentation, I could see more ways of how we can utilize those funds that would either directly or indirectly impact our Mill Creek residents. From a service standpoint, maybe in policing, not just purchasing Narcan like we've been discussing in the past. We found that the cost to the city of Ashley administering this is probably minimal. Maybe a yearly reporting, if that. We are required to have ongoing documentation and tracking of kind of what we're spending the funds on. But other than that, our finance director said probably 5 hours a year tracking and administering this. But there are some costs with administering the purchasing product or creating programs as well. So that's something you have to think about what the value add is to our community from doing that. So the next steps is before our next council meeting is to review all that information, to kind of think about what I presented here, maybe the presentation that Jason Bierman, maybe go back to the next council meeting and kind of look at the information they presented as well. If you have any questions on what the county presented, I probably can't answer everything, but I can reach out to Jason. I can get those answers answered as well. So it's pretty clear, develop an internal Mill Creek opioid abatement strategy, or we reallocate funds and partner with Snohomish County. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Martin. Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have a question for the chief. I'm curious, from the chief's perspective, does he think that it's more beneficial to have the money for programs here or to go and form an agreement and work with the county?
So like the city manager said, we're still reviewing some of the information that was provided by the county. So we're not really set yet to provide what is beneficial more than the other. There are always benefits to keeping programs in-house, especially if there's little cost to doing so. That being said, there is still the management of those programs and which programs are we going to implement. But I will say that Narcan is fairly expensive, and not knowing full well how they're going to distribute that if we go with a county program, I would like to do more research into that before we make any type of recommendation or talk to you further about it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Paddock?
Thanks for that, Martin. City manager, excuse me. I'd also be interested to hear what the, I guess, public safety vision of or version of kind of how the endemic is impacting our citizens here. Because I'm kind of understanding what's happening in Mill Creek with opioid addiction would help me at least to think a little bit differently maybe about how to use the funds. And in addition to public safety, I'd love to hear from South County Fire, their last year or so with their first responders on what's been their experience in responding to folks that are obviously struggling with this here within the city limits. I'm not expecting an answer right now. If you have one, that'd be great, Stan, but Chief. But from the South County Fire, it'd be great to hear that before the next meeting.
Councilmember Cavallari?
And I'll get into some next week when we're ready to talk about voting on what to do with the money. I'll get into some more of the anticipated uses. There are a lot, but there's also no rush for the city to spend this money every year. If we wanted it to sit in account and just keep it as a line item on our budget, we can account for it. We can make sure we see exactly how much is growing. And if we wanted to, I could think of, honestly, when I started putting pen to paper, I thought of at least 25 things that this would go for that would directly benefit the city or the citizens of Mill Creek. So I'll get into it in more detail next week, but thanks for your input also, Chief. Thanks.
Councilmember Steckler.
You know, last week, we heard a lot about the decriminalization of opioid addiction, and I brought up the concern I had about opioid addiction, how that's affecting the mainstream and programs that we could be doing for a lot of our citizens. And I'd really like to see us expand on that a little bit further next week. If there are programs that you hear about or have seen that have been successful in helping people in the mainstream in our population that are due to all different kinds of operations and other issues that are falling victim to pain medication and subsequent addictive qualities of it, that are how it's affecting a lot of our people, and how we can help them. And maybe this money could be used for those kinds of purposes as well, to help those people, not just the ones that have fallen into a criminal element.
Yeah, if there's any point in time, until next week too, if you have any top priorities that you feel like you want implemented or you feel like could abate, you could just send those to me, and we could do some more research on different things that you're seeing out there as well. Because we're not seeing everything on the staff level. The chief probably does quite a bit from his staff going out there and being on the street, but and then you can just send those to me if you like. So,
But you're not bringing us a plan for using the funds next week. We're just giving you direction of whether we keep them here or send them to the county.
that is correct, Mayor.
Okay. Just want to make sure our expectations are all.
And like I mentioned, those attachments kind of allude to, and well, explicitly kind of mention all the things that we could do with those funds. And it's a big list of things where we have options. So some may take more resources than others, though. So, but 20,000 a year, if that is not a lot, but it does add to as well. A lot of other things. When we talk about fee studies and everything all adds up. So thank you.
And again, there's just no rush to spend it, right? There's no timetable on it. Just want to make that clear.
Other questions? Deputy City Manager?
I just wanted to point out that if we do decide not to go with the county, we could eventually say after next year, we could do a part of our funding. So if we decide, hey, we like the program that they've put in place, we don't necessarily have to fund it right now, but in the future, we could still join in with the county or do a portion of the funds to the county.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor.
Director Todd.
You, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I want to introduce this evening, we've got Robin Friedman in the audience from Waste Management. She is going to be, if you are willing, when I can't answer something or I need help, if it's okay with you, she could come to the other microphone and help out. I appreciate that. We've talked about the solid waste contract a couple times over the past, partly because the county was also working on the comprehensive plan. So we've talked more waste than we normally would have this year, but this is the time for us to make a decision on moving forward on the contract we're negotiating with Waste Management, who's been our current provider for a number of years. So a bit of timeline history. Our present contract was originally from July 2015 to June of 2022. During COVID, you may remember, there was a lot of issues in the recycling market, the China sword, the blue sky, all kinds of things. They came and talked to us about contamination charges and need to increase those rates. At that point in time, we went ahead and decided, let's extend the contract for a couple of years to get us back to a period where it's a little bit more constant environment potentially, and give us a little bit more visibility of what was going on in other cities. And so we have just extended that under the same rates, but with new terms. New rates and the same terms. Essentially, didn't change any of those terms. We agreed to a new schedule. So we have a new schedule as of a couple of years ago. And then in council and staff, we had the discussion back in May of 23 on how do we want to go forward? Do we want to do a competitive bid? That's a lot of work, but you get maybe it assures you got the best price out there, but it's work for the providers as well. And at that time, we talked about the benefits of direct negotiation. We had a good relationship with Waste Management, not a lot of customer complaints. We felt like it was better off to go that way and get good rates for someone who already had their equipment in the environment, knew the environment very well, and would be likely to win that competitive situation. So here we are. Okay, excuse me, this is a recap from back then. This is what we talked about back in May. We talked about it 1 week, and then a couple of weeks later got your inputs on those. The kind of different factor we talked about was important for switching from weekly collections to bi-weekly collections. A lot of cities have recycling every other week, or organics every other week. You'll see that in the rates. We elected to stick with what we've got now, which is all 3 services every week. We talked about was a 10-year period beneficial to us, or is it acceptable to us? Right now, our ordinance limits us to 7, but it was beneficial to us and to the provider to more line that up with the length of longevity for trucks and other things. And those other things, there were things we talked about. Council's general attitude was there wasn't a lot of things to change, so we went forward with that direct negotiation. Same service levels I just mentioned, recycling compost every week, and leaving the garbage and recycling embedded. That means that if you have garbage service, you have recycling, there's no choice. And you do that to make sure that people are not just wish cycling their garbage into the recycling and vice versa, that they are availing themselves of that opportunity to recycle when they can. And we left yard waste optional, and that's something that we may need to change in the future. There's some things happening in Olympia that may affect us. We're a city of under 25,000, and so the rules that start rolling in 2027 about organics may not affect us, but it's kind of, we're right on the cusp. But basically, you may remember many years ago, we elected to leave organics separate because we've got a substantial number of people in Mill Creek that are in a townhome and they don't have a yard service. And so they didn't see a need for recycling of yard waste. And so we've left that off. You'll see the numbers later on. It's about 30% of our customer base in Waste Management's customer base for residential in the city doesn't have yard waste right now. So they get a better rate by just having garbage and recycling. And their compost is not something they're dealing with right now. You're not allowed to put the compost in the garbage under our rules, but that's going somewhere, maybe down the garbage disposal, or it's minimal amounts. We talked about working on operational efficiencies, what would make it so we could have the minimum price increase. We said to Waste Management, please, oh please, give us the lowest rates possible. Are there things that we could do in terms of changing the existing contract, things that are expensive for you to do? Let's avoid those things. We also said it would be okay to revise that recycling list. We've known for quite a while that recycling list that came from 2015 talked about materials that are hard to recycle or don't really work through what they call their materials recycling facility, the MRF that's down in Woodinville. Some things go really well through it, some things don't. It doesn't make sense to put something through that facility that people have to hand pick out of it. So we said, let's revise that list to match your capabilities and also the values of those commodities, which have changed in the last 10 years. And we also talked about it's okay to work on improving recycling rates. And really what we're looking for there is we're looking at lowering contamination. State of Washington does really well compared to other places. City of Mill Creek does pretty well compared to other places. But ultimately, if we can reduce the contamination, it gets more value for that commodity for recycling and is better for the environment. So we said those are things we were willing to look at in this contract. So staff and WN have agreed on the contract basics. They've developed some rates that are both for residential and commercial. We have a tendency to talk about the residential rates because it's 5,000 plus customers and there's several hundred commercial customers, but the rates that they've given us are not biased one way or the other. We're not having residential subsidized commercial or vice versa. There are cities where that happens. We've not had that going on in Mill Creek, and we're not proposing changing that. So it's an equitable kind of thing. We'll talk mostly about residential rates tonight, be assured. We've kept that pretty level. I see Robin nodding her head. That's a strategic thing that goes into how they set the rates in the first place. We're working on contract update. The contract was scanned from the old PDF, so it had a lot of funky things in it we were working through. So right now it's in Waste Management's hands. I think I got a new I think we've got a new one tomorrow to take a look at. We're going through and correcting some of those things. There were errors in the original contract that had internal inconsistencies we uncovered when we got really deep into it. And there's other things we're modernizing. So for instance, looking at recycling rates and the contamination charge, which we'll talk about here, and other things that are in the contract. So we've modernized some of those things just with Robin and I talking about it. She sent it to her legal department, so they've probably done a full housekeeping on the thing to modernize it. If you look at contracts from other cities, they're more up to date instead of the 2015 version. So we're working on those kinds of things. City has taken the first legal pass. Legal has taken the first pass at that. Grant's taken a look at it. Not a lot of changes. We'll talk about some of those, but nothing really big that's working on that we need to be concerned about. The next would be addressing any new directions or comments from tonight and completing the details. I mentioned that these are minimal kinds of things. So we've updated the recycling list. We're talking about contamination charge after 2 warnings. So they have technology in some of the trucks, and I think they're going to get it in all the trucks in the next couple of years. Looking for Robin to nod her head. Basically, when they're dumping in, they can say that recycling container had a garden hose in it. That's not good. So you'd get an oops warning as a residential customer that says no more garden hoses, knock that off. And then the second time you did that, you get a second one that says no more garden hoses. Third time, we'd assess a fee for that. And it would be money that goes to waste management through their billing process. But the important thing is not to make revenue out of this. It's really to encourage change. So Robin and I've talked about this. She said she's flexible on what that number is. She even one time said it could be $5 or it could be $100. I think 25 is enough to get people's attention, but not to be too onerous. That's what we're talking about there. On the commercial side, probably $100 makes some sense, but that is debatable. Robin doesn't want us to mess around with it too long, but I think it is really, it's a partnership thing. What do we want to do to change behavior? So recycling, we do a better job of recycling as a city and reduce the contamination charge, which is going to keep the cost lower for everybody. We all pay if they have to have people at the workers down there at the line in Woodinville picking out plastic bags and things like that aren't supposed to be in there. We've had a list in the contract that goes way back. Think about events we might have had 6 or 10 years ago, keeping those same 6 items. So those same 6 events. So for instance, they bring a lot of carts for the Milkview Festival, but they also give us carts for like the extravaganza event or for a trunk or treat, which we didn't have 6 years ago. So still keep six support things. And the waste management's been great about those things, not changing the number, but we'll change the list just to kind of match up with what Scott and Jody have done. And in the past, they've been very good about, if you're not going to do trunk or treat, well, but you're going to do extravaganza, that's fine with us. So it's a kind of a good faith thing there. Amazing that's in the contract, but we've never done it in all the years I've been here. There's a thing in there called a city cleanup day. Basically, bring out your old couch, stick it on the curb on a Saturday morning, we'll pick it up for free. That doesn't go very well. So staff in the past or waste management astutely in the past said, let's not do that. What happens, everybody says, oh, I'll bring that couch out. And then they forget to do it until 2 o'clock. And it's already been a collection thing. So you end up with everybody's junk on the curb twice a year. Instead of doing that, we're changing it to what they call a Think Green event, where we probably coordinate it maybe with the shredding event or with some other electronics recycling event. And let's have a location where people can bring certain kinds of things that are hard to recycle. It's like a styrofoam packaging you can't get rid of. Maybe we'd have that be something you could bring, or like I said, coordinate it with other things. So they would help us organize that and do the collection on those 2 events. So I think that's a very good trade-off. It's more usable to the community, would get us towards our recycling goals. And again, we could partner really well with some other organizations to make it a fun thing for the city. So that's what we're talking about with the Think Green events. Right now, they do have live customer service. I think most of it's based out of Arizona. If you talk to somebody, the call centers down there, it turns out that most of the people who call to get live customer service really want to talk to somebody is Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, when they're, I didn't get picked up and what do I want to do about that? People seem to recognize that's a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 kind of thing. And so they're proposing to have live customer service at those hours, local time. You can call and really get somebody to talk to. And the rest of the time, they've got enhanced self-service tools. You think about today versus 10 years ago. going through an option, going through the app, going to the website, going through an auto response AI generated thing. There's lots of other tools. And we think I think that's a reasonable trade-off to make there. It helps them again with reducing their costs of having call center open on Saturday that people aren't calling very often. And they've done pretty well with that in other places. We have performance fees built into the contract, so we can double check how that's going, but we could ask Robin to expound on that later if we'd like. And the last one there is the inflation index that's in the contract is CPI urban territory. And there's a better CPI as far as they're concerned. I think it lines up for us well too. It's based on the water, sewer, and trash. So it's more based on the cost of doing this kind of business. So it's the fuel that they pay, the drivers that they've got, the kind of equipment they run. It doesn't depend on the price of eggs or the price of housing. And so it actually would have been a better CPI for us in the last couple of years. One reason our rate went up so much last year for the CPI increase was, what was the CPI, 6, 7, 8% there for a while. So automatically the CPI increase under the CPIU went up fairly significantly last year. And there could be times when it would be better to have been using that CPI.
Isn't the CPI usually higher when you include fuels?
Well, I would just say on average, the water.
Can you come to the mic?
I would just say on average, we get a monthly kind of quarterly report, and the water sewer trash CPI has been around 3%. And the all urban CPI has been as high as 9%. So what I've noticed, I can't speak to fuel specifically, but what I've noticed is the increases and decreases aren't as dramatic as the all urban. It's more steady. And so I think it just works better for our industry, but I can surely research your question around fuel, and then I'll share it with Mike and he can get back to you.
Yeah, thanks. And I don't think I was just it's more of a curiosity than anything else, if that's what we're going to base this portion on. Thank you.
You'll see it in a minute when we look at the chart. So the pricing is based on a tipping fee that they pay the county to send things to the landfill. So if the county decides to change the tipping fee to take stuff and put it from a truck to a train to ship it across the mountains and bury it in a landfill, Roosevelt landfill or wherever it is, if that contract with the county changes, that's automatically built into this. There's also a CPI increase that just reflects that their costs go up over a 10-year contract. They're of course not going to go into contract without having some inflationary factor in there. So those two things, you'll see it on the chart. Those both add together. The county, I don't think they've changed the rate in a lot of years. I'm looking at Robin again.
Really?
Or have they?
Maybe they're going to come out with a new rate.
Yeah.
I know that in King County, it's going up big time.
Yeah, I think it will be. That's just something that's going to happen to every hauler, every contract, every situation. It'll affect everybody. I think from the Snohomish County group, they're saying it's been a while since that rate has changed. Again, out of our control on that part. Here's an example of what that looks like. So I just mentioned here, so you can see if you look at this chart, it's kind of complicated, but like if you look at weekly, this is residential. Here's weekly residential. So if you have a 20 gallon, let's use a 35 gallon garbage cart. They figure that the average weight of that is 15.8. That's a calculational factor they use. But really what it comes down to is it says the disposal fee is $3.59. The collection fee is the $22.19. So together we pay $25.78 is the rate you would see on your bill per month. See how the chart kind of works? So that's the garbage piece. Down here is recycling. Here's organics. It's a very long chart. You've seen it before, but that's basically their rate schedule that they've given to us would be attached to it. Looking at a little more example here. This is a complicated chart. So I gave you a paper copy if you want to follow along as well. And I'm going to highlight some of these to make it easier to see what's going on. So the first column here, what we're going to do is compare our rates today, our rates under the new schedule, and some of our neighbors' rates to give you a sense of where we are. And we've got some pretty good rates, but they're not the cheapest, but they're still very fair, I think. So for this today is showing you the rates that are effective right today. And it shows you for a 20 gallon cart for your garbage, 35 cart for your garbage, 64 or 96. So different people have different services. Look at the yellow numbers here on the screen. There's only 600 customers out of this city that go with a 20-gallon garbage cart. There's 2,829 that have a 35-gallon cart. That's most people have that normal 35-gallon cart. But there's quite a few. 1783 have 64. They have that double size cart. And there's even, 271 that have a 96, a huge garbage cart. So that the yellow number is showing you the number of customers. That top line is for the size of your garbage. Remember, your recycling is wrapped into that. So it doesn't matter what size your recycling cart is. The second line down here is there's 99 customers that have a very small 35-gallon cart for their organics. 161 have a 64, and most of us have the giant one, the 34, 54. Most houses, if you've got room for it, you have that big one because it takes a bunch of yard waste. But there are some customers who have a smaller one, same price, no matter what size it is. So that's showing you what the rates are today. And when we've put this together is the GR means the garbage and recycling together costs you $16.77 for that 20-gallon cart picked up every week. If you have yard waste, you add on $13.06, and so for all three, you're paying $29.83. For most folks, if you look at the bulk of the customers, here's all three is $35.67. That's their monthly charge. Get billed quarterly, but that's the monthly charge you pay for those three services at that 35-gallon garbage cart, any size recycling basically you want, and yard waste. Make sense? Got you so far. Okay, next column is the new proposed rate. So effective next year, this contract will be effective next July. So we're working on it now for July. And that now, this is the rates they're going to propose. You can see how the garbage and recycling, for instance, the small cart, the 20 gallons is going to go from $16.77 to $19.12. The yard waste goes from $13.06 to $14.89. So the total goes from $29.83 to $34.05, excuse me, $34.01. So it is not an insignificant rate increase, but that reflects the realities of the recycling market and the realities of labor costs and fuel costs, et cetera. And that's a rate that they are signing up for a 10-year contract with the CPI rates built, or the CPI increases built into it.
Director Todd,
Yeah.
There appears it says admin fee not included on last contract and this contract. And on some of the other cities, they either have one or it's included or it says separate line items.
Good question. I'm getting there, but let's go ahead and talk.
Sorry
about
about that.
So in our current contract, we'll come back to this later because it's an important decision to make. In our current contract, they add for us a 1.5% admin fee. So if I've got this service, $29.83, I pay 1.5% on top of that comes directly to the city. They collect it on their bill and they just give us that money. Some cities wrap that in. So they price it such that the retail price they show to the customer, what they see on their bill is the total amount, including that admin fee. Some cities have these services at a wholesale rate and then price them themselves. And so you'll see that in this chart. It's really hard to find apples to apples comparison. We're just trying to make it clear on this chart that this does not include our 1.5% admin fee. And you're gonna have the option to change that if you'd like to. So good catch, Councilman Caroline. Next one, if you lived in the county, you don't have a contract. You have the UTC rate. That rate is based on costs that the haulers give to the commission, Utilities and Transportation Committee?
Yeah,
Commission?
Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission.
Yeah, so the haulers have to give them their numbers and they say, and we need this much money to run the service. And so it's negotiated, or it's really based on accounting to say what it is. So if you're in the county, you wouldn't have the benefit of some of the extra things we've got, like the Think Green event or supporting city events or doing those kinds of things. But this is the rate you'd pay right across the street if you're in an unincorporated county. This, remember, so now you can see up here, I've highlighted in pink, we've got weekly garbage, recycling, and yard waste. If you're in the UTC rate, it's every other week recycling and every other week yard waste. So this rate down here for all three is less than the $40.47 we would pay here. It's $37.64, but they only get picked up every other week. I think from a cost standpoint, that means two more trucks that are coming around in the 2-week cycle. So you can see that in terms of their costs, they've given us a good rate, but we're going to pay more in Mill Creek than you would across the street because of that extra level of service. So a cost model, it makes sense why it's higher. From a customer convenience standpoint, this was a decision we made 10 years ago, is to have every service every week so that people didn't have to remember which one to put out and never ran into a situation where it's not recycling this week, I'll just throw it in the trash. Or it's not yard waste this week, I'll just throw it in the garbage, because we're trying to avoid that.
How long are those county rates? It says they're effective January 1st of 23. Are they good for 10 years like our contract, or are they a shorter
They
period of
change every
time?
year. How often how
So-
can they change, Robin?
So,
Let's step up.
Come to the mic, please.
so the way the UTC rates work is they are assigned different, it's called a tariff. So a hauler is assigned a territory and a tariff, and we service in that territory in the tariff. And based on the customer population, it's a fee for service model. And we apply to the UTC for a rate increase. And it's not on a regular cadence. It really depends on the commodity market. It depends on the age of the trucks. It depends on the customer population. And so we'll apply for a rate increase. I can't tell you that it's every year. I can't tell you that it's every few years. It's not a regular cadence, although there is CPI applied to those rates. So the reason the date is on there is because that gives you a point to see that that's when the rate was applied. So if it's older, that was the current rate plus CPI. Does that make sense?
It does. Just think it's important to understand, because the rates we were looking at, if we were to adopt them, would be good for 10 years, subject to CPI, but the rate's locked in. So initially it looks like, oh, it's higher than what the county's paying, but that rate could change anytime in the next several years if the UTC ups the rate.
Yes,
Approves a
and
rate
in the next
increase.
10 years, there will be rate increases
Right.
over time. I just can't say in
Sure.
January 2024.
Yeah, there's no set cycle that you go back to the UTC and ask for a rate increase.
No, but I could tell you that that is a little stale, and I do think that probably that we will be seeking a rate increase in the near future. I just can't tell you when.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure that's the same number. Malt Lake Terrace is about a year ahead of us. They did a new contract just about a year ago, November of last year.
All right.
That's the same number they used for their comparison, because it was the same number back then. So.
Got it. Thank you.
I'd just like to also say that this is just a guide.
Yeah.
You know, Mike and I spent a lot of time talking about this is a very unique city. You know, most cities don't have weekly service for all three lines of business. It's a bit unusual. So when you look at these different cities, you're not always going to see an apples to apples comparison. And that's another reason why the rates are different. So in Kirkland, that's a newer contract. As you can see, they have weekly rates. The city of Redmond, they have weekly rates. They just went out to bid and they have 2 years left on their current contract. And they're going to see that the marketplace is incredibly different than 8 years ago when they started their new contract. So rates have gone up dramatically because of lots of different things, as Mike's gonna get to, but I'm happy to add on. But I just wanted to say that it's hard to look at this and say, well, this city pays this, we pay this. It's a very unique city. You have services every week. I live in the city of Seattle. I don't have all three services every week. You're unique. There must have been a reason why, because a lot of cities have every other week service. So I wasn't around when, I don't know if you know why there was that decision in the first place, but
I don't know the original. I remember 10 years ago, Donna Michelson sat right over there next to me and said, nope, we can't remember which week it's gonna be. We need to have
it's
every
a
week.
huge, it is much more convenient. And also people probably recycle better when they have an opportunity
Yes.
to make a good decision. There's probably less wishful recycling going on.
It's wish cycling, yeah. I added those next two columns while Rob was talking, but we put Mont Lake Terrace because it's a recent contract. It's a pretty good contract, very similar in a lot of ways. They've got a few differences in their events, but I think we've actually got a better deal on our events, the extras that they give us. But you can see that theirs does include an admin fee, so it's wrapped in there. So they've hidden that. And so that's a good deal. And you can see in the smaller can sizes, it's less. But if you get to the 64-gallon cart, which is like 1/3 of our business, it's now more money than ours. And so it kind of switches around depending where you are. If you go to Kirkland, we included that one, not because Kirkland is comparable to Mill Creek, but it was the one that was close to us with a fairly recent set of numbers and had every week. It's the only one we could find with every week. Crazy numbers. Sorry, Martin, you ought to bring your garbage to Mill Creek and get rid of it. But if you have a big one there.
Martin, you live in Kirkland. Yeah, you'd
80
like to
bucks-
bring your
80
garbage here.
bucks or 120 bucks. I mean, they are really anti having big garbage cans in Kirkland, so you can see that it's different there. We could all charge Martin, bring some of your garbage and I'll put it in with mine. So again, very complicated chart. Is that the best rate out there? No, I think it's a really good rate, or probably the best rate for every week service. Because you think about it, having 3 trucks show up every week instead of 2 trucks show up every week is a lot more service for them to provide. We've got a good rate because the carts are in place, the trucks are in place, the drivers know this area, their customer service people know this area. So we're a known commodity. So if we would have gone out to the market, we could have spent a lot of time getting a competitive bid, but most likely would have been more money. I think Waste Management sharpened their pencil pretty well and said, this is a fair rate that they're willing to sign up for 10 years. Next chart
Quick
is,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
Can you remind me, are these weekly rates or monthly?
This
rates?
is a monthly rate and you get billed once every quarter. And most people now, I still get a paper bill, but I pay automatically. I'm not sure if everybody always gets a bill still, but there's a lot of people automatically even going paperless.
If you have an account on My WM app, you will no longer get a paper invoice. You can pay right on your app and you can see when the truck's arriving. There's a lot of kind of good resources using that tool. So
They've got GPS on the truck, so they're getting to the point where you can say, okay, if I call them and say, hey, somebody called and thinks they got missed in Sunrise, she can look at that and go, oh, yep, they're running a couple hours late today, but they're still gonna pick it up today. Or no, they missed Sunrise and they'll pick up tomorrow. So that's an amazing technology that they've got on our trucks between the cameras and the GPS. A lot of good things going on. We'll get Robin's number. Yeah.
in all seriousness, you're more than welcome to call me if you have an issue. I don't have a problem with that. I don't get that many calls, but I'm happy to help. I've worked at WM for 12 years. And I'm happy to take care of an issue. I'm sure you'll call Mike first, but Mike, you can always call me.
We have a local person too, Niles.
Yeah.
Kimberly Niles, I don't know where where she goes.
She goes by Niles, but
she's fairly new to this area. Remember, we used to have Marcy Manabusan?
Yeah.
Marcy went and worked for the city of Marysville directly, so
Yeah.
she's no longer with them, and so Niles just started, but Robin's carrying us through this contract change. The next chart there is just a small example of the recycling list. This has been updated. It was pretty. It was 10 years old before. It was kind of hard to understand, but they've done a really good job here of saying, what is it that you're allowed to put in there? And what are the preparation instructions and what's excluded? So we still need to communicate this out to people, but this is very clear on their website. Aluminum foil is not recyclable. Even though it seems like it's aluminum and aluminum can, you can't do that. Shredded paper is not recyclable as paper. It's recyclable as yard waste, but don't be putting that shredded paper in there. Because when they dump the single source in the MRF down in Woodinville, it flies all over like confetti. They hate that stuff. So that's the kind of thing that is in here. There are stickers on all of our carts. We talked about re-stickering the carts. That's a very expensive proposition to do, to go out to 5,000 households and stick new stickers. But I got Robin to say, I can have a stack of stickers in my office and we'll have one over here. You'll want new stickers that says what they should do. So we as a city will do some social media, some educational things. How do you be a good citizen? Or these recycling events. Here's new stickers for your carts, or here's examples on how you do the recycle right. WM has been a great participant at our Mill Creek Festival for a number of years. They typically have a booth and they've got to spin the wheel and the kids the kids generally guess right about whether you should put that Starbucks cup in that form or not. The folks don't always get it right. But that's a lot of this is educating the kids to educate the parents about the right thing to do. So this is all about recycling right, not the wish cycling. So this list reflects things you might not have known about. Okay, not that broken dish, not that broken glass in the glass, not broken window glass. It is glass like bottles. And again, it's because what they can recycle, what has value in that commodity chain.
Councilmember Cavallari.
Thanks, Mayor. So now that you touched on that, on the recycling and potential penalties, I think you talked a little bit about. for contamination issues, like, let's say you say, hey, that's 3 weeks in a row, you put tinfoil in there. And so what is the process for disputes? And if you wanna, how do you resolve disputes if you don't agree with it? Is there gonna be some sort of formalized process to deal with this?
You want me
Go
to
ahead.
take that?
Yeah, good. Yes. please.
Well, first of all, I want to say if your neighbor, because I'm sure you would never do that, and I would never put tinfoil accidentally in the recycle bin, but if they put, a ball of tinfoil 3 weeks in a row, have no fear. It has to be, more than 10%. That's really, you can see it with your eyeball, or a camera on our truck would pick it up. So it has to be something fairly, like you mentioned, a garden hose or holiday lights or diapers. Those are things that stand out. So what would happen is the contamination would be identified by WM or the driver. And there would either be a letter, a notification that's sent to the customer that says, we noticed contamination. And after 3 times that we've seen it, there will be a charge. Also, if it's something that the driver has seen, the driver will leave an oops tag, which is kind of a cardboard, like this big. It'll be on the container and it'll say, I just stopped by. I either didn't service you because you had so much material in there that's not recyclable, or we noticed garden hoses. Please don't put garden hoses in your recycle bin or your yard waste container cart. So the driver has a tablet in his or her vehicle, and they will make note of leaving an oops tag or that they saw contamination. But let's say a customer gets $25 charge on their invoice, and they're like, what the heck is that? There's a contamination charge. I don't even know what that is. And they call up customer service, or they call Mike, or they call you, or they email us. We will send them a photograph of what we saw. If they request it, it doesn't come automatically. So this is why I actually also said to Mike, it's really about people just being more conscious about what they throw. I don't want a customer to feel like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous, this charge. Really, what we found in the cities that we've been doing this in as of late is one charge, they're the best recyclers in the neighborhood. It really does create behavior change. We don't see customers getting more than one charge. It's really, once there's an opportunity to communicate with customers, and customers who really aren't recycling appropriately, and they do see that one charge, we've kind of tracked it for a year, and we've never seen those customers pop up again. So it seems to be a good tool.
And just lastly on that, so let's say you have somebody that's gotten their citation or whatever we're going to call it, $25 fee, fine. Does that process of 3 strikes or bites at the apple, does that renew, or are they always a habitual offender? Okay, all right.
I think it'll just start over. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Don't we
But
have
that's a
that?
good question. No, I think it just, the clock starts over, but
Okay.
we were tracking it in a few cities, and people just don't offend again. And it's interesting. I should try it with my kids.
Don't we have
Yeah,
don't we have
see
this
what
under
they
the
put
current contract? Don't
In
we
the
have this
current
under the
in current
contract?
Contract, if you do something bad, they can just say, we will take you out as a customer. And then there's a process where somebody could say, hey, Waste Management said they won't collect my stuff anymore. And there's a dispute process.
Has that happened?
Not the time I've been here. I
We
don't know.
really like pulling up and taking someone's cart, because now what are they doing with all that material? They're just throwing it away. They're frustrated. They're angry. They're mad at the city. They're mad at us. And they call us up, and we have to bring the container back. I think there's something about, we ask you permission to remove, you give us the green light, and then they call to reinstate service. It's expensive for them to reinstate service. Plus, we've just removed the container. Now we have to put it back. What has the customer really learned?
So the process was in there. It has not been.
Not the
pulled that
contamination
trigger.
protocol.
Okay. Does this list remain in effect for the length of the contract? And the reason I ask is, we have Waste Management at our property in Chelan County, and I was a little surprised when I found out that it doesn't include glass in the recycling. So we truck all our glass back from the other side of the mountains to this side of the mountains, even though for a period of time we were putting it in and we never got tagged. But because we didn't know it wasn't included. But so I don't know why it is that over there glass isn't included, but I
really
wouldn't
heavy.
want a surprise like this over here.
So I'll tell you a couple of things. Number one, I do believe there is something in the contract, Mike, that if something is no longer recyclable, I can come to you and say,
Mutually talk
may
about
we change the list?
Yeah, but we have to agree to the change, but it's
Okay.
mutual discussion. They're gonna say, no, China no longer is gonna take number one plastic. And therefore we don't have a market for it. So we'll have a discussion about that.
Now, in regards to Chelan County, I have to look up why glass isn't taken. I
know
I
why.
would say that
I
that
do.
has more to do with the area than WM.
Yeah, it's east of the mountains. There was an initiative in the legislature to make it so glass was no longer recyclable in this state, only go back to like deposits like they do in Oregon, because the eastern side of the mountains, shipping that glass around is really expensive.
Well, also
Chelan,
paper
they've got places.
suppliers, paper, they don't like to receive recycled paper if it was mixed with glass. So that might be a reason.
Okay.
But I'll look into that because I think that's, and also, you can go to King County and the list is gonna be different. You can go to Skagit County and the recycling list is different. It's really quite unfortunate that the state hasn't harmonized and created one recycling list because it would make it so much easier for people, no matter where they are, they know what's recyclable and what's not. But
That's common sense.
and it's also not really the hauler that drives the recycling list.
Right.
It's the government. I mean, I wish they asked us what was recyclable. I mean, if we came up with the list, it would just be things that are very, very consistently recyclable. For example, glass is very on and off. Now it costs more to recycle that glass and make a new wine bottle than to create a wine bottle from virgin materials. But per our contracts, we still take it. So about 30% of what you put into your recycle bin that goes to Woodinville through the Cascade Recycling Center, we are paying to get that material recycled. So having a slimmer recycling list would be advantageous for us, but we're not the ones that come up with the recycling list. I mean, it is a partnership on a local level like this, but it's mostly driven by county and state
And public expectations.
and public expectations. Mhm.
Next one, too, we talk about the administrative fee. So presently we're at 1.5%. That brings, the whole contract's about $3 million. With, when the rates change, it goes up a little bit. And this new, new rates sometimes encourage people to go from their 65-gallon garbage to a 32-gallon garbage. We've talked about that before. That's if you don't like the price increase, do a better job of recycling. So that number, but it's about $3 million, 1.5% of $3 million, $45,000 a year. So we get a check from them. I think it's quarterly that we bring it in. It's just part of our general fund intake. Robin has pointed out we're really low at 1.5%. Most cities are 6 to 10%. Some of them wrap it in, like Terrace has chosen to wrap it in instead of showing it as a separate line item. On ours, I think it says, I can't remember what it says. I'm gonna bring my bill.
Utility tax?
It does not say
Admin
tax.
fee?
It says administrative fee, I believe. I think it says administrative fee or something like that at 1.5%. So it's a few pennies on, the service that you have. That cost could reflect, some cities have a whole bunch of folks working on trash and recycling. We don't. This has been a part-time job for me for the last little bit, and it's a bunch of work when we go through this. We could look at reflecting some of our operational costs to manage the contract, where now we're bringing some money in for that, but we could do a more comprehensive job of managing that contract. Or we could be handling more direct customer calls instead of saying, I don't know, call Robin or call Niles. The event setup, we've talked about this, our current event crew with Scott and Jody using contractors for some of those events. That's a huge peak load to run a parade or to run an extravaganza or a trunk or treat. Maybe this is the way you'd feel like we have some more money to say, let's hire a contractor to work on this Think Green recycling event. Somebody who would just focus on that event for us, help us organize and work with our partners on that, for instance. Another way you could think about this, these are heavy vehicles. There are some impacts on our roads. You can't really go one-to-one But there is an impact of them driving their trucks on our roads. Now they're picking up our trash, but some cities also explicitly think about that in terms of how they put that. I'm recommending that you consider something in the 3 to 5% range. 3% is be about $100,000 a year. 5% would be about $165,000 a year. We just had a discussion about increasing fees in tough times. So I'm not going to push that, but it is something that you should consider. It can be adjusted periodically. There's a process in the contract. We set it. We will set it when we get this contract going.
Yeah.
Robin would love to know what number to put in that blank. But then a year later, you could say, let's change that for the following year. There's a lag involved. I think it's a 6-month lag because of the notifications that are required, but you could change that in the future. Or you could say, let's go 1.5% first year and 3 and 5, or go to 3 and then 5, or whatever you want. It's really variable. I don't even think there's a limit on it. I think you were telling me somebody's got like 15% in there. So there's some cities that are pretty aggressive in terms of how they're collecting revenue for their other recycling or other environmental kinds of programs. I'm not recommending that, but I would like you to think about that kind of number. And like I said, Robin's anxious to know what that number would be. Next steps, follow up on any questions you got from tonight. If there's questions you want us to go off and research, we'll be happy to do that. Our staff, their staff, legal in both cases are looking at the contract itself. She's got a new version that's going to hit us tomorrow. There's just a lot of details. It's 79 pages long. It's got a lot of stuff in it. And so we need to go through that. So we're going to work on that as fast as we can. Need to set that admin fee, agree on the contamination fee. I talked before about the 25 and 100 for the proposal for residential and commercial. We could adopt this as early as December 12th if we were really lucky and really smoking, but to get a packet put together the next couple of days means that whatever Robin's got in her inbox is going to be perfect or close enough that we could say you would authorize the city manager to execute a contract with various details that wouldn't impact the overall size of the contract. Remember, this is not a contract. It's a contract to get into a relationship with Waste Management whereby they're providing the service at a certain rate, but some of the little details you could maybe administratively delegate those to the city manager. It would be nice to get this done sooner rather than later. We'd like to lock in these rates. They're anxious to know that we're taking their offer before they go like, well, we've rethought things. It's 2024. New accountants get there, start sharpening their pencil a different way. So we'd like to lock those in. And it does really take 6 months, even though they're a current provider. There's a lot of things to do in terms of getting a new contract set up because there's a few changes. The contamination charge, we keep talking about that, but that is a new thing to implement for Mill Creek. So as much as it seems like July is way out there, July is just right around the corner in terms of getting the contract set up. So we'd like to get this in place. Doesn't have to be done in December necessarily, but the sooner we're done with this, the sooner we can move on to other things. I'm going to mention a couple other things, and we got details. We've got to give them the right map and event list, things like that. Our code, I will bring it back next week. The one thing we need to do our code right now is it says 7-year contracts. We've talked about this before. You've already said 10 years is fine. So that's been the assumption. So we'll be a change to that. There's also a couple of definitions. It turns out with the changes in recycling, since that code was, I don't think it's been changed in 20 years, we have to define a couple of terms that weren't defined, but it's really a consent item kind of thing for you to deal with. So we'll do that next week. And then we've talked about this organics law that HB 1799 impacts people who have a lot of organics. So there's gonna be some commercial customers that are gonna have to phase in over the next couple of years, decide what they do. If they've got 8 cubic yards of organics a week, they have to have organic service. They have to take that. It's available through Waste Management. So we're set up there. And then it ramps in more aggressively over years. We're set up to do that. But in 2027, if you're a city of over 25,000, I think it's going to affect us, or maybe it won't affect us, but I think it will affect us, where everybody's going to have the ability to recycle organics. So no longer be optional to have organics. And most of us could do that in our residential thing, but think about apartments. It is unknown what you would do. Do you convince people to take that compost thing separate from your garbage, separate from your recycling, down to the apartment thing and put it in the right place? It's really hard. And so we've talked about this and decided we're just not going to burden ourselves with that right now, because operationally, nobody's figured this out yet. Redmond is doing some pilot studies. Again, they've got a lot of staff. They're doing some pilots with WM to kind of say, how does this work? But so we're just going to let that chill. But I would just let you know, we're probably going to have to reopen this contract to deal with how do you put in a little micro can for the person living in that condo who doesn't have yard waste right now because they don't have a yard, but they're gonna have to deal with this organics if this law kicks in at 25,000, or if the legislature changes it again. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. Not horrible, but the recommendation from me and from Waste Management is just to say, let's not try to fret ourselves with the details we don't understand right now. So that'll be coming back later on. And I think that's it. Questions and comments? You've asked some good ones, but are other things you'd like us to go back and think about, work on? Things you want to grill Robin while she's here?
Councilmember Duque?
Yes, I waited for the slide. So thank you very much. Okay, list of questions. I'm curious about unincorporated areas. I noticed that at least of friends that I know who live in unincorporated areas have their own little compost bins that come, it has the sticker for Waste Management. Is that, is,
You mean they put? in
no,
their-
that they, yeah, in their, like, in their kitchen, they received it. A little, like,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, so we have, so it's a long convoluted answer, but in unincorporated areas, they pay their rate.
Mhm.
And a portion of their rate goes to education and outreach.
Mhm.
Okay, sometimes they get a commodity back, so sometimes they'll get a little rebate, sometimes they won't. It depends on what the commodity value is in that snapshot of time. But there is a little money that goes back to the hauler, and the hauler uses it for education and outreach. So we do a number of pilots, and I bet there was a pilot to give away X amount of kitchen catchers to people who wanted to compost in their kitchens. So that was probably a project associated with, built into their rates for education and outreach of some sort, but they're small one-off projects. And I bet they had to go somewhere to pick it up. There was probably an event one day and they went and picked it up. So in this contract, we don't provide kitchen catchers. But that's probably why the Snohomish County neighbor or friend of yours has a kitchen, a cute little kitchen catcher. We call them kitchen catchers.
I love that name. Thank you. I just, it's my gross bin is what I call it. And the, cause it's gross, but the reason why I ask about it is I'm curious about how those kind of programs happen, or how, you know, how those opportunities happen. And if we've ever had a history of doing anything like that with Mill Creek, or we haven't because of how our contract is and it's different with the county. So that's
Well,
why I
we
was
did not
asking about that.
budget for kitchen
Yeah.
catchers.
And it
but-
doesn't have to be that specific, but any rebates
mean,
or,
we could have a conversation about doing education and outreach, and maybe in partnership hand out kitchen catchers at an education and outreach event that we would do.
Mhm.
I surely can't spend money I don't have, but in terms of brainstorming with Mike, we could do that.
thank you for that. Yeah, so that was my first question is about that. And then it moves on to the marketing, and thank you very much for the explanation about the admin and where we need to go. Cause I think actually that's our biggest thing. And I have it like circled 3 times, is the marketing. How do we communicate these things? One, because I'm a huge fan of transparency and making sure that we have, you know, this information out there. And how do we, as a city, work with HOAs, for example, to be that conduit in their weekly newsletters on top of ours? Or, you know, how do we communicate, or with property managers, apartments, and how do we do all that? And it seems like that is money. And so I was curious if our contract included any type of outreach. It seems like it doesn't, except for these specific events that we talked about. But it seems like the opportunity to do that has to come from the admin fee from us internal. So that was my question, but
Yeah,
I think
between the
you've
Think
answered
Green
it.
event and then having some money to help amplify what Scott and Jody are already very busy, but if we
Yeah.
can amplify that with some marketing programs to get more, make more things happen, I think
Yeah,
that's how.
or like this kitchen catchers, or, you know, or new label stickers that say City of Mill Creek, and also has your recyclables that you can put on your trash can that's here at home, or whatever that might look like. So that's why, so that's less of a question and more of a thank you. I think I figured it out
Well,
when I
let
was
me just
talking
say a
about it.
few
Yeah.
things. I just want to say that in working with Mike, transparency was really important to him, which is one of the reasons your admin.
I'm sorry, can we speak into the mic for the Zoom audience? Thank you.
Yes, sorry about that. So I was just going to say, in working with Mike, having an admin fee as a separate line item was really important to him. That really shows transparency. And the other thing I wanted to say is we have a fantastic Mill Creek Waste Management website.
Mhm.
And, you know, when people go there, they learn about a lot of things that are going on, how to recycle, how to compost. There's a Think Green event. So we do a lot of pushing out of information that way. And we also have social media. And so whenever we partner on a new contract or any events, we do a lot of social media in Snohomish County with geo-targeting. And we also, Mike and I talked about for some of these events that are going to take place in the new contract that perhaps we would partner with your chamber organization or your Kiwanis. So we have been brainstorming on ways to get information out to your community.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think
Sure.
that's why I was asking
Yeah.
about that marketing, that connection, and the admin fee. And then two more questions for everyone, sorry. When you were talking about labeling of new, like not replacing the stickers about what's you know, it's too much time. What about new carts, when people request new carts?
New cards come with a sticker. don't they?
Will come with a,
So if somebody has a cart that's not working for some reason,
Mhm.
they just need to order a new cart.
right,
And
And
that will
those
come
carts-
with a new sticker.
perfect, that's what that was my question about, I don't want, you know, everyone to ask for new carts, but,
Yeah.
along that.
Yes, please.
And
no.
then, yeah. We can make our own labels. I can just imagine that.
No, you
yeah.
don't have to make your own label.
Just figure it out ourselves. And then I had just general questions because it's not part of this. And so, when it comes to like fees for like extra items that don't fit, do we have that? Is it changing from what was before to what is now?
I think it's similar. It's probably got some inflation in there.
Yeah, it's very
one of
similar.
those- There's 4 pages. It's in your packet. There's
It's in
4
the
pages of stuff.
packet.
Yeah,
Okay.
it probably says to recycle bulky items. There's white goods.
Yeah.
There's bulky items. You can get extra containers, extra things. It's all in there.
I will look again. Sorry for not catching that. Was
The
and so
the only additions on the rate sheet from the current contract are the contamination fees. We use the current rate sheet for the current contract.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
for the new contract.
Thank you. Yeah, because there was bulk pickup I wanted to ask about, or hazardous waste, if there are any changes to like, or.
We don't
if-
take hazardous waste.
Correct. And there's no drop off locations that because I know other cities, when you look at the waste management, they'll have like,
So that's one of the things we could do better. So Snohomish County takes certain kinds of hazardous things like fluorescent light bulbs or car batteries at Airport Road. They take certain things on McDougal up in Everett, like paint.
Mhm.
So those kinds of things, again, I think we could do a better job of helping our citizens understand that's what you do with the thing you can't recycle, or that could be with the Think Green event. This is a Donna Michelson thing from a number of years ago, was bring your paint. We had a hazardous
Yeah.
waste alternating with the shredded event. So again, that's something we could branch out and do it at that Think Green event. They wouldn't do that part, but we would do that part with a partner, or we'd collaborate on those kinds of things.
Yeah, we'll call the partners. We're gonna take care of that event for you.
Yeah. because it was like bulbs and batteries. And like I said, when I was looking through waste management, the website in general, right? And I found on like just general, there was, you know, places or locations where it seemed like it was, but it's not for Mill Creek. And so I was curious, do we,
I
like,
think
where
this
do
is-
people turn
this is
in
what you and
batteries?
Niles and I were talking about. If you go to waste management in general, that has some general countrywide tools that
Right.
don't work perfectly for Mill Creek.
Correct,
If
yeah.
you go to the waste management for Mill Creek site,
Yes,
it says exactly what works in our contract.
right.
And that's what we need to amplify with Snohomish County drop off for hazardous waste.
And that's why I just wanted to confirm, like here, these things are still not included at all for that. This has nothing to do with it.
Exactly.
And then. Yep, those are my questions. So I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
My system has gone black and can't be rebooted, so I
Oh.
think Councilmember Steckler had his.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments. I've been involved in the past 4 or 5 years now with the electronic recycling event and the shredding event. And so I've been on the street with the citizens when they come through, and both have been very successful. And the number one thing that we keep hearing and we keep seeing at the electronic recycling event specifically is people bringing through batteries and paint and other hazardous materials. And we tell them where to go online to get information, where to take it. And what's interesting is they don't want to do that. They want to give it to you there. They want to take it someplace and drop it off. So if we were to do one of these things like you're recommending, absolutely, the line would go down the street for a hazardous waste event. I can tell you that. I can promise you that right away. Because we're getting them down the street for electronic recycling year after year after year. So hazardous waste is the number one request that we get. The other one, though, that I wanted to mention, when we had our meeting before this and you brought it up again, I keep hearing about this contract, and a lot of things I really like what I'm seeing here, is contamination seems to be a number one comment here. And I understand that, you know, putting new stickers on all of the containers is costly, it's laborious. I understand totally. But clearly that would be the most effective way to reduce contamination. It's at the point of contact. It's where the recycling materials go in. And if they see the sticker there and the sticker clearly updates, it tells them that it's not acceptable. You're going to reduce your contamination. Because if you don't have the sticker there, if you don't have the information there, clearly what the citizens are going to do is I don't know, I'm just gonna throw it in there and see if they catch me. And you're gonna continue to have the contamination. If we could find a way to maybe cross promote this with another vendor here at Town and Country or somebody like that, but still we're gonna have to mail these things out. Or we're gonna have to or we're gonna have to have your people on the trucks or an extra person on your trucks putting new stickers on the recycle bins during the travels. That's going to be the number one way to reduce contamination. And we talked about this, and clearly when I heard Mike say, well, we can't do that because it's going to be costly. And that I could kind of hear that was probably came from your discussions. And I understand that that's a reality. But the reality is, if you want to reduce contamination, that's the point. They're not going to look at your website to find out what goes in and goes out. That's always been there for years. They don't go there. They go look to their bin. They don't see it in their bin. They throw it in their bin. I had no idea garden hose wasn't recyclable.
So read the sticker that's on your cart when you go home.
Yeah, and you know what? My sticker wore off probably 5,
So
8
that's
years
what I'm
ago.
about
Yeah.
getting new stickers for.
Yeah,
folks.
my sticker's been gone for years. It wore off years ago.
I'll
And-
send you a new sticker.
But yes, but I'm just one of
So
thousands of other citizens in this city.
Yep.
That has no idea.
Yeah.
I kind of have to use my common sense. I still love that. Every year we ask each other the same question in my house: is Christmas wrap recyclable? And I don't know how old, and I'm pretty darn old, and I should know. And I still ask myself that question in our house: is it recyclable or not? And I won't tell you whether or not I throw it in there or not, because
Well, I will just say that I hear you, and I do think that stickers are an important part of the whole education and outreach process. I will tell you why they're so expensive and why they're not part of your future contract. So your rates are created, there's lots of things that go into rates. One of the things that goes into rate making is efficiency. So the driver pulls up in his or her automated truck and uses a WM cart, which means the driver does not have to get out of the vehicle or lift the cart.
Right.
Okay, so now you've created a much more efficient system. The driver isn't necessarily in a position to carry decals, get out of the vehicle and put the sticker on and make sure it covers the other sticker, make sure it's perfectly aligned. So that's not part of the rate making process, unless that's something that you want to add. Then we would have to figure out how to sticker all the carts. And that is quite a logistics endeavor, because so many of your customers, I'm just looking at, let's just say, for example, each customer has 3 bins. So we'd have to relabel all those bins.
not just the recyclable bin.
Well, sometimes there is a label around hazardous waste on the garbage, but anyway, let's just say the compost and the recycle, just for this conversation. The driver doesn't do those labels. We have to hire somebody to go out and put all those labels on. And that becomes a huge expense. Also, purchasing labels is also a big expense because they're adhesive on the back. So that is why, in working on this new contract, we didn't recommend new labels. But I hear you that it's nice to have something right in front of you. We do an annual guide where people see every year, where they can take things, what's recyclable, what's not.
I get the information, it's in my billing. But my building's upstairs in my office and I'm downstairs in the garage with the recycle bin in front of me.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna run upstairs and check that, pull out that file. Again, I didn't think it'd be your driver either. Your driver is designed to sit inside the rig and have the little claw come
Yes.
out. It would have to be somebody else that's gonna go out and get it. It is a
Yes.
cost. I understand it's a
Yeah,
cost, but
it's a cost.
if you want to reduce containment, pardon, not containment, contamination, you've got to do it at the point of contamination. And it
Yes.
is a one-time cost that would happen only on the blue bins only.
Well, you make an interesting point about the point of which, where you throw it away. Our biggest problem with contamination is multifamily properties. That's really where the most of the contamination is. And I think it is really because you have to go from your apartment and you have to walk it down to a communal container. And there's lots of contamination in those bins. And it's a very transient community. It's hard to do a lot of education and outreach. So,
Even marking those bins would tell them, if you have any, if you're in doubt, throw it in the garbage. Don't throw it in the recycle bin.
yes, I think that should probably just be the label, to be honest.
That's the, yeah. But the idea of educating people at the point of contamination.
Yes,
Okay, sorry.
but thank you for your idea. Mike, we can talk about it offline.
Yeah, I think pretty good. Somebody got the contamination charge. That's somebody who needs a label. So we will get, if that's the issue, give this some education.
Other questions? So we can keep moving.
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing is we're gonna keep working on the details of the contract. We're gonna get it done as quickly as we can, get you to approve that contract or authorize the city manager to say this is good enough for us to work on getting the right map attached, getting the right blanks filled in for some of these intricate details, because you probably will not meet right after Christmas. We would like to get this wrapped up and start moving forward. So,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you, Mike. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, our consent agenda tonight is very light. It's city council meeting minutes of November 28th, 2023. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Consent agenda is approved unanimously. City manager reports.
Thank you, Mayor. Two reports. One report is CQC. As you recall, last year we collected applications from high school students from Jackson High School and around the area to apply for CQC's program that promotes the program promotes leadership among students that are in high school about to go into their undergraduate educations. And so this program starts in November. We're kind of getting a late start again, but we're going to be working with Kiwanis and Chamber and getting the message out that we're accepting applications for from high school students around the area that would like to apply for, I think it's $1,500 scholarships to continue their education, have it partially paid for. So the second report is regarding 1961. You recently received in your inboxes an email from our city clerk regarding a meeting that they would like to, Rob Fenty would like to have with each one of you in preparation for January. As you know, our retreat is the last 2 weeks where we'll have marketing solutions here. We're working with both of them so that they're working together. We can align these two marketing solutions with what Rob's going to be doing moving forward into the coming months. So please check your emails if you haven't and schedule a meeting with Rob. It'll be Zoom, so it'll be pretty easy for you. He's not going to be here in person for that. So that's all my reports, Mayor. I don't any more reports. Nope. City side. So thank you.
Okay. Only report I had is thank you to the staff, Jody, Scott, and everyone for the great tree lighting ceremony. Thank you to Santa for coming down from the North Pole to celebrate with us. It was a well-attended event, and unfortunately it wasn't as cold as last year, and the rains that we've been having the last couple of days hadn't hit yet. Mayor Pro Tem, any reports?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to thank everyone for the parade. It was lots of fun, and we did get to catch Santa before the parade started. So that was really exciting. I also want to let everyone know that I am going to the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County's legislative agenda kickoff meeting with some representatives on Thursday. They're going to be talking about the upcoming session and what they think is important. And so I will be going to that and I can report back. I also want to give a shout out to Jody because I think it was maybe it was 2 meetings ago. She mentioned about painting the windows and that Erica Knapp was hired. And I actually know Erica Knapp, and she actually reached out to me over the weekend and told me how wonderful Jody was to work with and how amazing she is. And she just raved and raved on her. So I just want to give Jody a kudos, and I don't see her. So you guys please let her know that I gave her a kudos and heard great things about her. And finally, I just want to say that I was on the way home from basketball practice last week, and one of our fine officers had pulled somebody over for speeding right as we were driving home. And Cora was very proud of them and was in the car saying, "Oh, good job. He's doing such a good job." So she was so proud and talked about that all the way home. So I do want to let everyone know that I am seeing them out there and they are pulling people over for speeding. So you better not be speeding. And maybe Santa's watching too, who knows? So that's all my reports. Thank you.
Councilmember Cavallari,
No report, Mayor.
Councilmember Steckler.
You know, I too have to say thank you. First to Scott and Jody, but also to all the other people that made that special Christmas in Mill Creek last Saturday. The volunteers, I'm looking at Barb Heidel on the screen, and I know her other volunteers as well who helped spearhead the parade. It was just from the Christmas pictures with Santa in town center to that wonderful parade. I love living in a small town. I enjoy being a part of a small town and seeing all the people dance and parade down the street. And I know a bunch of them, and it just made me feel good. And they came out in droves. And then when I came down here and saw that tree lighting, and our freaking parking lot was full of people, packed with people. It was amazing, and it made me just feel really good. It was a community, and we're feeling our community again. And it wasn't too long ago when COVID turned us into an isolated area, and it's taken a while to get out, but we're getting out and we're coming back as a community, and that's our strength, and that's what makes our city strong. And Scott and Jody, yes, you did a lot of work. Boy, I'll sing your praises, but all those other people manning booths and hot chocolate, the Kiwanis Club, and the DJ that was out there, Chris, and Mayor, you were singing bringing the tree lighting up. It was a great day in Mill Creek, and I thanked all the volunteers and everyone that made that possible. It was a great day in Mill Creek. It really was. So thank you to everybody who made that possible.
Councilmember Allison.
I don't have any reports.
Councilmember Duque.
A big thank you for the Mill Creek Town Center Business Association for all their work, for all the activities, and Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce for the activities that were happening for the parade, the free train ride. My 9-year-old still wants to get on it. I got on it. It happens every year. This is what we do. And a big thank you. It was what I found, and I agree everything was said about the tree lighting. I just don't want to take additional time, but it was fantastic. But it was really great to see people from the parade get to stay and then go into businesses and make sure my family and I, we went into Patioak and purchased toys for the Christmas tree they have there for dogs and cats. And so it was nice that you saw people doing that. They stayed, which I think is obviously a big plus for businesses. But it's just nice that, you know, it was that opportunity. Frost was full. And it was great to be able to go down that way. And of course, Santa in the truck was fantastic and we screamed so loud. But for everyone there, so big thank you to the Mill Creek Town Center Business Association, of course, our city, and then the Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce for that event. And then the other thing I wanted to flag for our council members and for city staff that Thursday night is the Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce's holiday party. It is at Arena Sports. It's from 5:30 to 9 p.m. If anyone's interested in attending and you want more information, I'm happy to share that. But you can also look on their website. But I would invite all of you, if you're available, to attend and purchase a ticket. It should be a great event. They're trying something new by doing it at Arena Sports. So that's nice. So again, it is this Thursday, December 7th. And I know it's said to RSVP by a certain date, but I'm sure they won't mind. So if you have any questions, you can ask me after the meeting or text me or email me or however you'd like to if you want information about that event. And I hope to see you guys there.
Councilmember Paddock?
No report.
Audience communication, there's no one in the audience, members of the public. Anyone online like to address us? Seeing a shake of heads, no. Okay, we have to adjourn to executive session, or recess to executive session to discuss potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, subsection 1, lowercase I. Estimated time is 30 minutes. So I'm correct that we're not going to be taking action at the conclusion of executive session. So can I have a motion to extend the regular meeting until 8:55, please?
Move to extend the regular meeting to 8:55.
Second.
All those in favor, did I hear a second? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? We will recess to executive session till approximately 8:55.
I wonder if it's cold back there. I used to freeze to death when we were, it was just like, so. That's why I make sure I know.
Yeah, like the last time.
It's like I wrote a form.
Questions?
Say 9:30? Oh, there you go. I was like, that's weird. For a minute, I thought only three of us. What should we say, 9:30?
Tell them in there.
Move to extend the meeting to 9:30.
Second,
All those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Opposed, the regular meeting is extended till what time?
9:30.
9:30, and the executive session is extended until 9:15.
So we extended it till 10 o'clock or 11. Or 11.
Yo, Adrian. Yo, Adrian. The council has concluded its executive session at 9:09. As I indicated earlier, no action is being taken, and so hearing no objection, we will adjourn the regular meeting at 9:09.
Thank you, Mayor.
4 seconds. See you next week.